Welcome back to LCOBMW. I'm Glenn McGowan. We're back in the shop today. I'm gonna be doing a couple little things, nothing big, just kind of talking cars, just doing a little maintenance. I'm gonna try to get the 73 up and running, batteries dead and that. Just typical things that, you know, you always have to deal with when you have multiple cars or multiple project cars. You're kind of jumping back and forth. So that's kind of where I'm at with today's video. So I'm not gonna do like a specific project. Kind of had an idea in my head the other day that I might be playing around with the 73 here. So we'll just get it running first, work on that for a little bit. I want to go over a couple things there, and then I'll tell you my idea for that. As far as the C4 is concerned, now that I'm still kind of finishing the paint and correction, the buff and cut, it's running really good. I have to do a couple little maintenance things I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do valve cover gaskets and paint the valve covers to clean up all the like compound sludge everywhere. Other than that, as of right now, I'm not gonna be doing any engine swap at the moment with the car. Pretty much it's running really strong, and I just got done doing the 6-speed swap. So, you know, I'm pretty much thinking, hey, you know, I'm just gonna leave it alone for a little bit. I'm gonna drive it, have some fun with it, move on to a couple other things. I have been trying to hunt down this other project car. Been actually looking for probably like a year now, and nothing's really come up for what I want specifically. But we will get to that later on once I actually find it. I'm not gonna, you know, dig down too deep on that because I don't have it yet, and I don't like to talk about things I don't have. So until then, I'm just trying to think of something else fun to do. So we'll get to that, but right now let's get a battery in the 73, get this thing fired up for right now. It's kind of been like the black sheep in the shop. I feel like all I've been doing is working on the 69 and the C4, and they're pretty, and they're pretty much not finished, but pretty close to being, you know, nice drivers. That car just kind of gets thrown to the wayside, and every time I go out, I'm either putting a brake caliper on the stupid thing or putting a battery in it because it just sits all the time. So we give it some love right now, and we'll get into that. This week's video is brought to you by LCOBMW.com. Shop our site for Corvette performance parts. We now have our new D.I.Y cat delete pipes back in stock, our new test pipes, and we now have a new version of our hose kit available. This is for 88 to 91. This includes a fitting that you can hook your hose directly up to the hose that's on your car on the firewall. So check out the link in the description or visit LCOBMW.com. Okay, so I have this like giant BMW battery here. If you don't know, I have a BMW parts business, so I always keep these things, and they're huge. They're like, I mean, you can't really tell how big this freaking thing is, but it's a beefy battery. They're like super expensive, but I hoard them because a lot of my cars take those, my Porsche, my M3, both my X5s, everything except for the C4 and the 69. 69's got a, I don't know, one of those fancy pants red top Optima batteries in it, and then the C4 you can't put anything that big in there because it's just got like that tiny little area. So this thing's kind of like wedged in my 73, and I changed the terminals on it years ago because I pretty much have free batteries, which is kind of awesome. So whenever that thing dies, I just pop it out and throw another one in, which makes it really, really convenient. So obviously that's not the right fit, and it kind of sits in there tight, but kind of like crooked a little bit. And sometimes I get little smaller ones that fit in there perfectly, but that's what I'm gonna put in there. Okay, so if you don't know, C3 Corvette batteries are located behind the driver's seat. There's a little compartment back there that it sits in. So years ago, I put Corbeau Forza race seats in this and got rid of pretty much all the factory interior for the most part, center console. I made that out of like carbon fiber, and I put these race seats in it, and then I recently put in a Sparco removable steering wheel because I always kind of want to make this more of like a street kind of race car type of feel. So when I put those seats in, I kind of didn't factor in the fact that you lose the folding down motions of the factory seat, or even you can get race seats that fold down. So kind of made me not be able to put my T-tops in the back anymore, and more importantly, it made it hard to get the battery in this thing. And since I had the race seats in there, I had to put like 4-point or 5-point harnesses in it, and I made my own harness bar back there. So essentially I gotta like take that off and, you know, kind of just reach back there. I take this T-top off, the driver's side one, just so I can kind of finagle myself back there and rip the thing out. So it probably wasn't the smartest thing I did, but, you know, it looks cool, and, you know, it is what it is. So I'm gonna start right now, get this T-top off this thing, and start getting this battery out here. I'll give you a little zoomed in shot. And it also helps too that I can pop the steering wheel off, so I kind of tuck that in there and crawl in this thing. Give you a little zoomed in shot. See, those seats have been there for a long time with the tops off. They faded pretty bad. So back here, that's my harness bar, and then in this compartment here is the battery. So I essentially just loosen up that bolt and that one. I think I take that one out, and then I just kind of slide that back and then just pull the battery out that way. I think I actually don't have that tray screwed down. I think it's just sitting in there, and I actually kind of pull that out of the way too. So I'm just loosening up this harness bar right now. It mounts like right into the seat belt, the factory seat belt mount, which is pretty cool. I know you're thinking, Glenn, race seats, harness bar, Sparco steering wheel, this thing's gotta be like super fast. Nope, it's probably as fast as like a 2009 like Toyota Sienna minivan. I don't know, that might be faster, but it's got the looks and it sounds cool. So that'll work for now. I don't know what the original C3 battery terminals are. These are like, I think it was like, I don't think it was a side post. I think they were screw on, kind of like the C4 with like 8mm battery bolts. This has like clamp style bolts with like 13mm heads. I converted the terminals, I kind of actually just made adapters for it so I could use the BMW batteries, but the factory parts of the harness are still there, which is cool. So if I ever wanted to like, you know, put it back, which probably won't. This isn't like a how-to video, but I feel like I have to say something. Now, you gotta take the negative terminal off first, then the positive, and opposite when you put it back in, positive then negative. It's like, get it out, I sit on the shelf, and then I gotta kind of pull it in between here. Ugh. And this one's not as wide as the other one, so we'll see how that one fits. This is like 2 inches wider, I just measured it, so I don't know, we might be pulling it back out, but try it. I don't know what's worse. I think that like this is probably worse than taking off that side panel piece on the C4. I feel like I got that down to the science. This is still agonizing every time I have to get in here and like lift the battery in and out. And I know a lot of new cars too, the batteries are hidden like all over and they're like impossible to get to. So I guess it could be worse. Sounds like I'm beating the terminal on the battery, which I am. All right, harness bar, and then that's it. Fire it up. Okay, so one of the best things I did with this car, I think it's probably been maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. I put Phytech fuel injection on it. Essentially, you get rid of the carburetor and you keep the factory intake manifold. This bolts up in its place. You run a fuel pump and a return line, and that's pretty much it. And it's self-learning, 102 sensor, and it was the best thing I did for a car that sits, especially with gas nowadays. If it sits too long, it gets gummed up in the carburetor and stuff like that. So I was having that issue because before I was driving it a lot, it would sit for long periods of time. And every time the car would like run the crap, it would stall out. So I did this, and it was the best thing I ever did, because every time when the battery dead, you just prime it once and then it fires up. the sketchy part of like how close they are, and I back them out of this shop bay, so you gotta check like a million times, make sure one's up further than the other. The sign of like true neglect, just all sorts of trans fluid. I don't know, I heard power steering whine, so maybe that's power steering fluid. Okay, so I'm back from my little romp. Car runs good, no issues, definitely underpowered. But besides that, a couple of the ideas that I was having was that I wanted to do some sort of engine swap to this. The car is just the factory 350, the L48, if you know what that is. You know it doesn't make a ton of power. And it's pretty much all original, except for the headers and the Phytech. Manifold and distributor different. But besides that, it's pretty much all internals are all the same. My trans in it is factory Turbo 400, which has a shift kit in it, which I put in years ago. No issues with that either at all. But you know, same thing, it's not that fun to drive. All my cars are stick shift. I do love driving stick. There's nothing wrong with automatic at all, especially if you're drag racing or something like that. That's kind of what you run. But for me, I just like to kind of kick around and bang some gears and hit some turns and stuff like that. So one of the main reasons why I wasn't going to do like an LS swap in this car is that at the same time I did the Phytech, I did the, I believe the Doug's headers and the side exhaust on that. So I did that all at the same time. So essentially, now that my fuel system's done and I have the exhaust that I wanted for this car, is that when you go to an LS, obviously you could technically run that with like a carbureted intake manifold, but in my opinion, I'd rather not do that. Also, you know, you'd have to modify the headers, like the locations, you'd have to cut them and get different flanges, and it's a whole fab job right there for that. As far as I know, they don't make like a bolt up header for that swap. So, I mean, there might be out there, but I don't know, to me, it's like I just bought these, so why not just use those? So, pretty much every kind of car person in America probably has a Chevy small block V8 tucked in the garage, or their buddy has one. Because of the LS trend, a lot of like 350s, 400s have kind of just been pulled out, pushed aside. I myself have one. I have a nice little 355 out of one of my friend's cars from like years ago. It was in like a 3rd gen Camaro. I don't know too much about it. I know that it ran really strong and it was pretty rowdy at the time. I'm gonna pull it out and we're gonna probably go over that and possibly put that in here. Along with that, right now I'm thinking about running 4-speed, and I love 4-speeds. 6-speed 12 to C4. There's a Muncie M22 in the 69. So I just think, you know, 4-speed in like a 70s car would be like an awesome setup. So as of right now, that's kind of what I'm gonna lean to. So first things first, I'm gonna pull out this 355, take a look at it. Worst case scenario, I believe it was like 400 horsepower. It's still gonna make way more power than the car does now. Still run my Phytech fuel injection, still use my headers. It's pretty much a direct bolt in. It's not really that much modification you gotta do, which is kind of right up my alley with this project. I didn't want to get too crazy. I just want to make the car a little bit more fun to drive. And since I have everything, it kind of makes it a perfect opportunity to kind of freshen that up, because obviously you saw on the garage, this thing's leaking pretty much everywhere at this point. So I'm gonna freshen that one up probably. As long as it looks good, we're gonna put that in here. So we'll pull that out now, and then we'll probably go through it like next week or something. So here it is, covered in filth, buried back in the corner of the shop for the last 4 years. So I'm gonna just drag this out further. Maybe we'll pop the valve cover off real quick, take a look. But I'm gonna probably end up lifting it up, putting it up on a stand before we start taking it apart. All right, so just a couple little things I picked up on. I mean, it's got cast heads on it. They're not even like the double hump heads. I think they're probably just like a factory head. It does have like a fluid dampener, like a performance bouncer, harmonic bouncer on the front of it. MSD distributor, but other than that, I mean, nothing too built on it, I guess. It could be internal, I'm not sure, besides it being 30 over for the 355. So we'll get this. Yeah, I mean, just stock rockers. Look like stock valve springs too. I did keep this thing like all covered up and sealed the whole time. So that'll probably pretty much prevent it from, you know, having any real issues. But I want to get the oil pan off of it, take a look, see if it's a 4-bolt main, just little things like that. But so far, you know, nothing's all rusted up, which is kind of cool. So somewhat of a good start, but I got to pull all these accessories off and stuff like that too. But so far so good. All right, so that'll do it for today's video. So next time we'll get this thing on the stand, tear it apart, see if it'll make a good donor for the vet. So we're replacing one boat anchor for another essentially, but don't be afraid of, you know, if you stumble across 350 or 400 or even a big block, to throw that into your car, because there's nothing wrong with them still. I know LSs are super popular. We'll probably get to an LS swap sometime on the channel, but for right now, we're still gonna use this old technology and put it in our car. So if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button. Thanks for watching.